I used to think fear was something you could outrun. I believed that as long as I stayed in motion, kept my breath steady, my mind clear, and my feet pounding against the pavement, I could outpace anything. But there's something different about a fear that keeps pace with you. It started as just another night run. I always preferred running after dark. Fewer people, less noise. The quiet was something I used to crave until it started watching me back. My friend Marcus and I had this routine. We'd jog after 9 p.m. through the back roads of our neighborhood, a web of paved streets and woodland trails that we knew like the backs of our hands. The suburb we lived in was safe. The kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked and kids played in the cul-de-sac until the streetlights buzzed on. That night felt colder than usual. The kind of cold that doesn't bite, it settles. It clings to your clothes, sinks into your breath. The sky was clear, stars scattered like dust across a velvet sky. I remember looking up at them just as we started down the forested trail behind my house. We took this path when we wanted to stretch our run, to make it past the easy mile and see if we could push through fatigue. The trail curved behind backyards, cutting through the edge of a wooded area that eventually opened into an old maintenance road, cracked and half-eaten by roots and time. That night, we wanted distance. We wanted quiet. We got both. And something else. We joked for the first half-mile. School, girls, college applications, the usual. Marcus had his headphones around his neck, music muffled like distant thunder. Then, maybe 15 minutes in, something changed. It was subtle. I didn't notice it at first, but Marcus slowed slightly, turning his head. "You hear that?" I shook my head, pulling one earbud out. "Hear what?" He paused, scanning the trees. Sounded like footsteps. I smirked. "We're literally running, genius." He didn't laugh. Instead, he picked up the pace. I kept stride with him. But as the seconds passed, I heard it too. There were 3 sets of footfalls. One was mine. One was Marcus's. And the third? It matched us. Perfectly. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the echo of our own footsteps bouncing off the narrow path. Or maybe another late-night runner keeping distance behind us. But the cadence was too sharp, too precise. When I stopped, it stopped. When I sprinted for a few seconds and slowed again, it adjusted, like it was watching us. Listening. Mimicking. Marcus was getting jittery. I could tell by the way he kept glancing over his shoulder, his form slowly falling apart. He wasn't running for fitness anymore. He was running from something. "Let's just finish the loop," I said, trying to sound calm. "Once we hit the main road, we'll be fine. Streetlights and everything." We reached the end of the forest path and emerged into an old stretch of maintenance road. The trees flanked both sides, tall, crooked things that bent like they were trying to whisper to each other. No houses here. No streetlights. Just that fractured asphalt beneath our shoes and the long, dark stretching ahead. We didn't speak. We just ran. The footsteps never stopped. Always a few yards behind us. Never closer. Never further. Then, maybe halfway down that road, I glanced back. And I saw it. It wasn't a person. It was shaped like one, but that's where the resemblance ended. It stood just at the edge of the tree line, tall and thin. Its body was wrapped in what looked like a torn black coat, the fabric moving even though there was no wind. Its limbs were too long. Not unnaturally long, wrongly long. Like something had drawn a human without understanding anatomy. Its face, God, its face was obscured, not by darkness, but by something blurry, like a camera out of focus, even though I was staring right at it. But what I could see were its eyes. They were wide, not round, but stretched, like someone had pulled the skin back until it ripped, glowing faintly, reflecting light that wasn't there. And it was smiling, not with teeth, just with the shape of a mouth, pulled back into a crescent that didn't shift, didn't twitch. I stopped running. My body didn't ask for permission, it just froze. Marcus almost collided into me. "What?" he hissed, but I didn't respond, because it had stepped onto the road. Its footsteps were silent now, but its legs moved with that same rhythm, matched to our own. And it wasn't chasing us. It was mirroring us. Every move we made, every adjustment in pace, every hesitation, it copied it. Like it had been studying us, learning us, mocking us. Marcus whispered, "Is it still there?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. Then it tilted its head, not in curiosity, not in confusion. It tilted like it had just understood something, like it had decided. Then it ran. We sprinted. There's no other word for it. Full body panic took over, muscles firing on instinct, lungs burning. We didn't speak, didn't look back. We just ran. Behind us, the footsteps exploded, no longer in sync. Faster now. Frenzied. Angry. Whatever it wasn't trying to mimic anymore. It was hunting. I heard something metallic rattle behind us, like nails scraping against concrete. And that laugh. A horrible, cracking laugh like a radio tuning between stations. Loud, then quiet. Sharp, then garbled. It echoed in my skull. We hit the main road, street lights flickering overhead. I thought we were safe. Thought it would stop at the edge of the dark. But it didn't. I glanced back just once. And I wish I hadn't. It was running under the street lights now, but its shadow didn't match its form. The shadow moved differently. Faster. With more limbs than the thing casting it. Its face had changed, blurrier now, the smile wider, as if it had stretched itself from joy. Marcus screamed. I think I did too. We turned the corner toward my house, shoes slamming the pavement like gunshots. Every window we passed was dark. Every porch empty. No help. No safety. We didn't stop until we slammed through my front door, locking it behind us with trembling hands. The house felt like a cage, but it was better than outside. We pressed ourselves against the door, breath ragged, muscles twitching. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks. Perfectly spaced. Perfectly timed. Like footsteps. We never saw it again. We never spoke about it either. Not really. Just occasional glances when we passed that trailhead, or when the night was a little too quiet. Marcus moved a few months later. I stopped running after dark. But sometimes, when I'm lying awake, and the house settles in its sleep, I swear I hear footsteps on the road outside. And every time I check, there's never anyone there. But the air always smells like old leaves and rusted metal. Like something waiting. Some things don't need to chase you. They just need to learn your rhythm. I used to think the silence in the countryside was peaceful. Now, I know it's just space for something to move without being heard. And on that road, just outside the preserve, something did move, and it never made a sound. This all happened the summer before my senior year of high school. I was 17, lean from track season, and desperate to stay in shape. With the team off for break and my usual running partners on vacation, I took every excuse I could to keep moving. That's how I ended up dog running for a family friend, a woman named Tessa who lived just outside town, tucked along a narrow road between the woods and an overgrown cemetery. Her dog, Olive, was a gangly Vizsla puppy with too much energy and no sense of direction. The deal was simple, $5 for every mile I ran with her. No questions asked. Tessa worked late shifts at the hospital, and Olive needed the exercise, so it worked out. Or at least, it did, until that night. I remember how strange the air felt from the start. Warm, but heavy, like a thunderstorm had forgotten to show up. The sun was already dipping low behind the treetops when I clipped Olive's leash and started down the gravel road that wound between the trees and the fence line of the old preserve. The light turned gold, then orange, then a weird burnt color, like the world was rusting in real time. The only sounds were Olive's claws scraping the road and my shoes hitting loose rock. The preserve stretched out on one side, dense with towering pine and rotting fence posts wrapped in moss. On the other side, just beyond the ditch, lay the old cemetery. Half the stones had fallen over, and ivy had crawled up the rest. I always avoided looking too long at it. Tonight, I couldn't help myself. That's when Olive stopped. She froze, ears up, staring dead into the woods along the fence line. I followed her gaze. At first, I thought it was nothing, just shadows and wind. But then I saw him. A figure stood by the base of a tree, about 30 feet in, still as stone. He wore a coat that looked a size too big and a cap pulled down low. From the distance, I couldn't make out his face. But it was the way he stood that bothered me. Not the fact that he was out there. Maybe he was a hunter, or someone scouting the preserve, but how he seemed. Posed. Like he'd been standing there for hours. Watching. And then he stepped behind the tree. Not in a casual way. Not like someone shifting their weight or walking deeper into the forest. It was jerky. Sudden. Like an animal reacting to being spotted. I waited, but he didn't come back out. Olive whimpered. I tugged at her leash, trying to get her moving again. Come on, I whispered, trying not to sound nervous. He's probably just a hiker. But she dug in. That stupid dog, usually vibrating with energy, wouldn't move an inch. I yanked again. Let's go. Reluctantly, she started walking. But every few steps, she looked back toward the woods. And so did I. I told myself over and over that it was nothing. That rural places attract weird people. That the silence messes with your head. I even forced myself to pick up the pace, to chase that runner's high. We kept going. Another mile, then another. The trees began to thin, and for a while, I started to relax. Until I saw him again. This time, closer. He was standing at the edge of the road, maybe 10 yards ahead, facing away from us. His arms hung limply by his sides, his back hunched, as if he were listening to something very faint. Olive stopped again, this time growling. I took a cautious step forward, squinting. "Hey." No response. My voice felt swallowed by the trees. Then he moved. Not his head, not his body. Just one arm, raising, stiffly, until it pointed directly up. Slowly, the fingers on his outstretched hand opened wide, then clenched shut, over and over, like he was trying to grasp something in the air. I felt my stomach turn. Something about that movement, the slowness, the rhythm, the intent, felt off. Like watching a puppet whose strings were pulled by someone with no idea how people worked. Then his hand stopped moving, and his head turned. Only he didn't turn around like a person would. It just twisted. Slowly. Too far. His chin nearly touched his shoulder as his face locked onto us. I couldn't make out his features, but I felt the stare. Like pressure behind my eyes. Like I was being weighed. I didn't wait. I yanked Olive's leash, and we turned around. We didn't run. Not yet. Something told me not to. I didn't want him to know I was scared. I walked fast, breathing through my nose, trying to pretend nothing was wrong. Olive kept pace beside me, ears flat, body low. After maybe 30 seconds, I looked back. The road was empty, but the forest felt crowded now, like something was pressing in from every side. That's when the silence changed. There's a difference between natural silence, bugs, wind, the occasional rustle of a squirrel, and this. This was vacuum silence. No insects. No movement. Even Olive's panting sounded swallowed. We reached the bend in the road, and I glanced left, toward the cemetery. He was there, inside the cemetery, just beyond the first row of stones, standing between two leaning headstones. Not moving. He was watching us. And behind him, barely visible, stood something else. Taller. Thinner. Like a dark smear on the air. I only saw it for a second. Then it blinked out, like static. I broke. I ran. I sprinted, Olive practically airborne behind me, the leash cutting into my palm. I didn't care. The road blurred. The air felt thick. Every hair on my body stood up. Behind us, I didn't hear footsteps. I heard nothing. But I felt something closing in. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't noise. It wasn't sight. It was presence. Like the air behind me had weighed. Like something massive and wrong was reaching out, trying to catch the heat off my back. I ran harder. The woods ended. The gravel gave way to pavement. Tessa's house came into view. The porch light was off. I didn't stop running until I reached the gate. Threw it open. Practically tackled the front door. Olive barked once, sharply, like an alarm, before bolting inside ahead of me. I slammed the door shut. Locked it. Collapsed against it. Nothing followed. No knock. No sound. Just quiet. I never told Tessa. I stopped running her dog that week. I didn't give a reason. I just made something up and left it at that. But some nights, when the windows are open and the wind dies down, I swear I can hear something tapping lightly against the fence behind my house. Not knocking. Just feeling its way across the boards. Looking for a gap. Some things don't chase you. They wait until you stop running. Some people talk about moments that change your life. For me, it wasn't a car crash or a death in the family. It was a white SUV that started showing up when I was 9 and never really went away. We lived in a cul-de-sac surrounded by open farmland. Quiet. Isolated. The kind of place where people smiled too much at block parties and nobody locked their doors because the nearest city was 40 miles away. I used to think that made us safer. Now, I know it just meant that when something did come, there'd be no one close enough to help. It started with a voice. I was 9, walking my little brother down our street with our 2 dogs one summer evening. He was 7, still in his pirate phase, running around with a plastic sword he refused to leave the house without. The sun had started to set, casting long shadows across the road. We were laughing about something dumb, probably him threatening imaginary ships, when we heard a voice call out. "Hey kids, come here a second." A man was leaning out of the window of a white SUV parked at the top of the road where our street met the main drag. He waved, smiling like he knew us. I stopped walking. So did my brother. You know him? I asked. He shook his head, but he started walking toward the SUV anyway. I grabbed his arm and yanked him back. No, I whispered, my voice sharper than I intended. The man waved again. Just need directions. But even at 9, I'd seen enough stranger danger PSAs. Something about his tone, it was too casual, like he was used to pretending to sound safe. I took my brother's hand and turned around. The man's smile dropped. He pulled his arm back inside the car and slammed the door shut. As we walked away, I heard the SUV start up. I turned around just in time to see it pull away from the curb and slowly roll down the road in the opposite direction. No plates. I told my mom when we got home. She listened, but brushed it off. Probably just someone lost, honey. I wanted to believe her, but I remembered how fast his smile had vanished. That was the first time I saw the white SUV, but not the last. Over the next few years, things started to stack up. Halloween, 2014. I was 10. Word spread that a black car, maybe a sedan, maybe a coupe, was creeping behind kids on our street during trick-or-treating. One parent confronted the driver, and the car lurched forward, almost hitting them, before tearing off down the road. No license plate. No one ever saw it again. Not officially, anyway, but I started noticing patterns. I'd be out riding my bike and see a car parked across the field, engine off, facing our neighborhood. Once, I swear I saw someone crouched low in the driver's seat, trying to stay out of view. I told myself I was being paranoid. Too many horror movies. Too many ghost stories from older kids at school. But it kept happening. And then one summer, it escalated. I was 15 and house-sitting for neighbors on the edge of the neighborhood. They had a giant golden retriever who needed letting out 3 times a day, and I was the only kid on the block not traveling that summer. It was easy money, and their house was less than a 5-minute walk from mine. One night, I got distracted, playing games online with friends. When I finally remembered to check on the dog, it was already after 10. I bolted over there, flashlight in hand, muttering apologies to no one in particular. The dog was fine, thank God, and I let him out, waited, brought him back in, and locked up. Just as I was about to leave, I saw it. A black car, parked across the street. Not a neighbor's. Not anyone I'd ever seen before. Its headlights were off, but the cabin light glowed faintly. No movement inside. I stood frozen behind the curtain, watching it. After 5 minutes, it still hadn't moved. I slipped out the back door and took the long way home through the woods. The next few nights, I stopped using the street altogether. I stuck to the trees. I never saw the car again during that job, but I never forgot it either. Then came the lockdowns. Schools closed, streets emptied, and I took up running to stay sane. Every day after schoolwork, I'd lace up and hit the rural roads that curved around our subdivision. Miles of flat, open stretches where I could think. It was supposed to be peaceful. It was for a while, until the SUV came back. It was white, same make and model I remembered from when I was 9. The first time I saw it again, it was on the opposite side of the road, crawling at about the same speed I was jogging. I thought it was a fluke, a coincidence. But the next day, it happened again, and the next, and the next. 10 days in a row. Always behind me, always keeping pace, never passing, never turning off. At first, I pretended it didn't bother me. I changed up my routes, took different turns, even started going out at different times. Didn't matter. It still found me, like it knew where I'd be, like it was waiting. On the 11th day, something changed. It was overcast, the kind of dim gray sky that made everything look faded. I had my hoodie on, earbuds in, and I was already a mile from home when I turned onto a quiet side road with a cul-de-sac. There it was again, the SUV, sitting at the entrance. But this time, it didn't follow me. It just sat there, watching. I jogged past, heart pounding, pretending not to notice. That's when I saw it. At the far end of the cul-de-sac, parked in front of a vacant lot, was a black sedan. Just like Halloween. Only this time, I saw someone underneath it. Not lying down. Crouched. Wedged up against the opposite side, just low enough to avoid being seen unless you were looking for it. They weren't fixing anything. They were waiting. I stopped cold. My stomach dropped. I turned around. The white SUV was still there. Still running. Still facing me. That's when I realized I'd walked right into something. A trap. Panic hit me like a freight train. I bolted. Ran right toward the SUV. It was the only way out. As I neared it, I heard the door slam open. A man jumped out. Tall. Thin. Curly blonde hair. The same guy from when I was 9. Wait, he shouted, grinning. I just want to talk. I didn't stop. Didn't look back. I ran like something was tearing the world behind me apart. And maybe it was. I don't remember the next mile. Just my feet pounding pavement and the sound of my own breath strangling itself. I burst into the house, locked every door, and collapsed. I told my mom everything. She called the cops. They listened. But without a plate number, they couldn't do much. Could have been a coincidence, the officer said. Lots of white SUVs out there. But I knew. It wasn't a coincidence. Since then, I've been watching. Waiting. I don't run anymore. But I still see the SUV. Not every day. Not even every week. But often enough. Sometimes parked just far enough down the road that it's almost hidden by the trees. Sometimes in the reflection of a store window when I'm out with friends. Once, I swear I saw it idling outside the school parking lot. They're still out there. Still watching. Waiting for someone less careful than me. Because predators don't disappear. They just pick a slower target. There's a stretch of road just outside my hometown that no one talks about. You could drive it in broad daylight and still feel like something's following you. I used to run that road every afternoon, until the day something stepped out from the woods and started running with me. Back then, I lived in a rural part of Pennsylvania. Farm fields, corn stalks, and cracked asphalt that ran for miles without a single stop sign. Perfect for running. Isolated. Flat. Quiet. Too quiet, in hindsight. I was training for a half marathon, so I ran daily, usually around 5 p.m. when the air cooled and the sun hovered low on the horizon. My favorite loop was about 6 miles long, looping past an old orchard, a half-dried creek bed, and a dirt trail that cut through the woods for a full mile before reconnecting to the road. It was peaceful, meditative even. I knew every bump, every pothole, every rusted street sign. Or at least, I thought I did. The first time I saw the mile marker man, I assumed he was just another runner. He was standing at the side of the road, right next to mile marker 4, the green, dented post I always used as a mental checkpoint. He wore a faded hoodie and what looked like old running pants, dark with mud around the ankles. His hands hung limp at his sides, and his head was lowered like he was checking his breathing. I gave him a wave as I passed. He didn't move, didn't even flinch. Just stood there, head down, like he hadn't even noticed me. The next day, he was there again. Same time, same place, same clothes, still unmoving, still not acknowledging me. Something about it made my skin crawl. You know when your body picks up on something before your brain does? That deep, buried part of you that still knows how to react to predators? Yeah, that. But I didn't stop. I didn't say anything. I just ran past and tried not to think about how, for just a second, I thought his head turned to follow me as I passed. It became a pattern. Every day, 5 p.m., mile marker 4. Standing, watching, motionless. His clothes never changed. His posture never shifted. He never had a phone or water or earbuds, just stood there like a forgotten mannequin. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe he lived nearby and just liked standing there for some odd reason. But it never felt right. He never blinked, never moved his fingers, not even once. About a week in, I decided to switch it up. I waited until 6:30 to go running. Sun was lower in the sky, shadows stretching longer across the road. The air felt thick, like it might rain, and I remember thinking maybe the mile marker man wouldn't be there this time. I was wrong. He was still there. But this time, he wasn't alone. Something was crouched beside him, low to the ground. It looked like a person, but it moved like an animal, twitchy, low to the earth, fingers splayed wide against the dirt like it was testing the road. As I passed, the man finally looked up. I didn't see his face clearly, but what I did see I'll never forget. His eyes were too white, like the whites took up most of the sockets. No visible pupils, just blank, gleaming orbs that caught the fading light in a way no human eye should. The crouched thing turned too. It smiled, not wide, not toothy, just a small, wrong grin, crooked and twitching, like the muscles didn't know how to shape it properly. I ran faster than I ever had before. I didn't look back. For days, I skipped that road, took the longer loop through town. I didn't care about the extra mileage. I just wanted to avoid them, whatever they were. But something started happening. I'd glance across fields while running and spot movement. Figures, distant, unmoving, watching. In the reflection of store windows, I thought I saw the man, just a flicker standing in the background. At home, when I sat on my porch at sunset, I'd hear light footsteps on the gravel road behind the house. But when I checked, no one was there. Until one night. I'd stayed up too late, headphones on, editing a playlist for my next run. My room faced the backyard, and I liked the window open, especially during summer. That night, I felt it first. The cold. It was a humid July evening, easily 80 degrees, but suddenly the air in my room turned icy. I pulled my blanket around me and got up to shut the window. That's when I saw them, standing at the edge of the tree line. The man, and the crouch thing. They weren't doing anything, just staring. I slammed the window shut, locked it, and backed away like they could climb through the glass. I didn't sleep that night. I decided to confront it. I don't know why. Maybe it was anger, or fear, or maybe I just needed to know if I was losing my mind. So the next day, I ran the original route again. 5 p.m. The sky was pale blue, clouds frozen overhead like still frame memories. As I neared mile marker 4, my chest tightened. I didn't want to see him again. I didn't want to know if he'd still be there. He was. But this time, he wasn't standing by the side of the road. He was standing in it, directly in my path. Not moving, not blinking. I stopped. "Who are you?" I asked. My voice sounded thinner than I wanted. No answer. "Why are you following me?" Nothing. The crouched thing emerged from the woods behind him. It stood this time, and it was taller than me. Lanky, gaunt, wearing the same hoodie. The man stepped aside, and the crouched thing stepped forward. It moved just like me. Same stride, same breathing. It mirrored me, step for step. Then it opened its mouth and spoke. But it wasn't its own voice. It was mine, not just mimicking it, perfectly replicating it. "Why are you running?" it asked, grinning wide now. I couldn't move. "Why do you always run? Alone?" My legs turned. I don't remember telling them to, but they did. I ran, faster than ever. Tears streaked my face, my lungs burned, and my ears rang with the echo of my own voice chasing me. I made it home. Barely. I collapsed in my yard, gasping, half sobbing. I never ran that road again. I don't know what it was. Some part of me thinks it's still out there, waiting for someone else to run that loop, to pass that marker, to be seen. Because sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps on the road outside, and they always match my pace. You can't outrun what already knows your rhythm. There's a man on the corner of Hawthorne and Finch who waves at every runner that passes. He's been doing it since I was 12 years old, and if you don't wave back, he follows you home. I grew up in a neighborhood built on the edge of farmland. The kind of place with long, winding roads, cheap mailboxes tilted like crooked teeth, and cracked sidewalks choked with weeds. Kids moved away after high school, and retirees moved in. The only constant was the man on the corner. He stood on the same patch of grass, just outside the chain-link fence of an abandoned lot. An old farmhouse sat sunken behind it. Windows boarded, roof caved in like a crushed skull. The grass there was yellow year-round. Nothing ever grew, but he was always there. A tall man in a pale blue windbreaker and white track pants. Thin, weathered, like he'd been jogging since the 1980s and just never stopped. His hair was thinning, straw-colored, and he had a trimmed mustache that never seemed to grow or shrink. He didn't talk. He just waved. A slow, steady wave with his right hand, palm out, fingers stiff. The first time I passed him, I was in middle school. I'd just started running to stay in shape for soccer. It was spring, and the sun still dipped early behind the trees. I remember my mom warning me not to stay out past dusk. Not because of strangers, but coyotes. I'd just hit the corner of Hawthorne and Finch when I saw him, standing perfectly still, right on the property line, waving. I hesitated but waved back politely, then kept jogging. He didn't move, didn't stop waving, didn't say a word. It became a thing. I ran that same loop every day after school. Same 5-mile circle, always ending at the corner of Hawthorne and Finch. And every time, like clockwork, he was there, already waving before I even reached the corner. I mentioned him once to my parents. My dad said he'd seen him before. "He's harmless," he said, flipping a page in the paper. "Just some lonely guy with a weird hobby." My mom wasn't as relaxed. "I don't like him. Something's wrong with his face." When I asked what she meant, she just shook her head. "Just don't get close, okay?" I never really thought much of it. I mean, he didn't do anything. No chasing, no yelling. Just the same motion, the same wave. Until one day, I didn't wave back. I was 15, frustrated after bombing a test, lost in my own head. I turned the corner, saw him standing there, arm raised. But I was too deep in my thoughts. I didn't wave, didn't even look at him, just kept running. It wasn't until I was halfway down Finch that I noticed something. Footsteps. Light. Measured. Matching my pace. At first, I assumed it was an echo. But the sound was too crisp. Too separate. I glanced over my shoulder. No one there. I slowed. The footsteps slowed. I stopped. Silence. Heart pounding, I turned fully. The street was empty. Houses dark. Curtains drawn. Then I looked back toward the corner. He was gone. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he'd gone back inside. Maybe I hadn't heard anything at all. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. That windbreaker. That frozen smile. That slow, robotic wave. The next day, I didn't run. I told myself I was sore. That I needed a break. But the unease lingered. And then the knocking started. It was faint. Deliberate. 3 knocks. Always at the back door. Always just after 10 p.m. The first night, I thought it was the wind. The second night, I looked. No one there. The third night, I stayed up with a flashlight and waited by the blinds. At exactly 10:07, 3 soft knocks. I flicked the light on and yanked the curtain aside. The yard was empty, but on the fence was a handprint. A pale smear, long-fingered, pressed low against the wood. As if someone had crouched there, waiting. I didn't run for a week after that. I avoided Hawthorne altogether. Took different streets, made up excuses. Then, one afternoon, I found a note in the mailbox. No envelope. Just folded paper. You forgot to wave. That night, I heard footsteps in the attic. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to face him. Not to confront him exactly, but to undo whatever I'd done. Wave. Break the cycle. Go back to normal. So I put on my shoes, hit the pavement, and ran my old route. Sunset painted the sky red. The wind was heavy with pollen and something else, like rust. When I turned the corner onto Hawthorne, I saw him. But something was different. He wasn't on the sidewalk this time. He was in the middle of the street. No longer waving. Just standing. Waiting. I slowed, cautious. As I got closer, I realized his expression had changed. The smile was gone. His lips were stretched flat, eyes sunken deeper than I remembered. His arms hung at his sides, motionless. As I neared, he raised one hand, not to wave, but to point, straight at me. Then he spoke. First time in my life I'd heard him. You made me follow you. His voice was dry, hollow, like wind through a vent. You brought me back. I backed up, breath caught in my throat. I waved, I managed. No, he said, tilting his head. You looked away. That's all it takes. Behind him, something moved. Something taller, gaunter. A shape, just barely visible in the dying light. It stepped out of the abandoned lot. No face, no features, but its arm rose, and it waved. I ran, faster than I ever had. Didn't stop until I collapsed on my porch, chest heaving, vision blurred with sweat and tears. I haven't been back since. I changed schools. We moved. New house. New neighborhood. But sometimes, when I'm out jogging and I pass a street corner, I feel it. That pressure. Like someone's watching me from the edge of the trees. And every now and then, in the distance, I see a pale blue windbreaker. And a hand. Slowly. Steadily. Waving. Don't ever look away. Not if he's waving.